Recorded in 1824, Joseph Nicephore Niepce developed the first photographic process, which took several days of exposure time and used an asphalt-like substance with copper plates. The first image he took was from the upstairs window of his estate. At the time, photography was only for the rich and those who studied it, until George Eastman started a company called Kodak in the 1880s. Eastman developed a flexible film roll box camera with a single lens and no focus, holding 100 film exposures. Consumers could send the cameras back, and Kodak would develop the images for them. This was the first camera inexpensive enough for the public to afford. In 1861, the first color photograph was taken by James Maxwell, a British physicist. Around the year of 1930, photographers started capturing images of life as it occurred rather than staged portraits, and this was fueled by the start of World War II in 1939. These photographers used 35mm cameras to bring the reality of war to American citizens in a way they didn't expect. One of the most historic examples of these images is Joel Rosenthal's photograph, raising the flag on Iwo Jima. Not long after the boom of 35mm cameras, Polaroid came out with the Model 95, an instant image camera, which used a secret process to develop film in the camera within a minute. By the mid-1960s, the models manufactured by Polaroid were plentiful and affordable. Meanwhile, in the 50s, Japanese brands Nikon and Asahi, known as Pentax now, introduced the SLR-style cameras, with new technology such as interchangeable lenses. For the next 30 years, these customizable cameras were the preferred option by professionals, though in the late 70s, point-and-shoot cameras were introduced. These calculated shutter speed, aperture, and focus, making the process of taking a photo simply clicking a button. Professional photographers continued to prefer the SLR cameras, which again allowed them to make their own adjustments and control their own images. Though the first digital camera was invented in 1975 by Kodak engineer, professionals were waiting for the SLR-style cameras to go digital. This finally happened in 1991 when Kodak released the DCS-1000. Since this revolution of photographic art, many camera manufacturers quickly followed. The SLR camera previously used was transformed into the common DSLR, or digital SLR. Today, Canon, Nikon, Sony, and other manufacturers offer advanced digital SLR cameras, and there are a wide range of models on the market today. Through all the years of photographic innovation, these professionals of photographic arts were capturing moments that may be able to provide as much history as a document of sorts. As they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So when studying the history of photography, I wanted to see a professional who has used this art in a significant way historically. After Googling photography museums around the country, I came across the International Center of Photography Museum in South Manhattan, New York. An exhibition from a man named Eugene Richards was what the museum was presenting at the time. His exhibition was called The Run on Time, which immediately interested me. I recruited my fellow SEF colleague, Jen, and we went to New York City. Entering the museum exhibition, we noticed that the images were not as pleasant as we had assumed. Reading more into Mr. Richards' vision, we learned a little more about his story. In his early days of pursuing photography, he met his wife, a poet. Not long after their marriage, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and pain struck their family. Photographing the entire process of her mastectomy, chemo, and recovery, he became inspired to photograph the beauty and pain and what others can learn from a visual representation of true pain. American Lives and Socioeconomic Realities was his first topic of interest. In 1971, he spent a large amount of time living among those in poverty in East Arkansas. He and his wife did extensive research, preliminary interviews, and thorough conversations with those photographed to best portray their message to the world. Many of them told their stories of how their financial standing and racial tension have led them to feel like they were living an imprisoned life, and one comparative to the past ways of America. He also photographed the notions of family, depicting how family can sculpt the physical and emotional aspect of people's lives. He photographed the effects of war and terrorism. On an assignment for Life magazine, he covered the war zone in Beirut, Lebanon. In 1993, working as a photojournalist for Doctors Without Borders, he photographed the true physical devastation of war outside a hospital in that location. Not only was war significant to Richards, but so was health and humanity. In the late 1980s, he went to Philadelphia and photographed the aspects of this topic. He captured the use of drugs, the effect of drugs on family life, and many other shocking things. Throughout this project, I was not only able to learn about the science part of the history of photography, but also its continuously applied significance. So be inspired to record history in whatever creative outlet you choose, because your message could inspire those of the future to do the same.